Pops and Senior Power will be joining our table.
Yeah, got you for that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so anyway, thank you for coming. It looks like we have a sparse room today live, but a populated Zoom screen today. So I would like to go ahead and move up to our first speaker today, which is Rachel Leong. She's from Self-Help for the Elderly. She wants to talk about their job placement program.
Thank you,
Rachel, thank you for coming.
Thank you. May I share my screen?
Absolutely. Let's see, let's make a co-host. There you go. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Rachel Leong. I'm the Community Service Manager at Self-Help for the Elderly. Thank you so much for having me today, and thank you, Albert, for inviting me today and giving me the opportunity to introduce our services and program at Self-Help for the Elderly. So let me first give you some background about our agency. Self-Help for the Elderly is funded in 1966 in San Francisco, Chinatown. We are serving more than 40,000 older adults annually, mostly Asian in 5 Bay Area counties. And we provide lots of different services. For example, we have housing services, transportation. We help some seniors to apply for the citizenship. We also provide some adult service and home care and so on. But our services are not limited to the senior. We also expanded our service to some the general public who is 18 years old or older. Employment service is one of the great examples, and it's also what I want to go into detail today. So we have our Chinatown Job Center located at 601 Jackson Street in Chinatown. The Chinatown Job Center was opened in 2010. We serve everyone who is 18 years old or older. It is a resource hub for job seekers and employer and also small business owner. We provide different kinds of services, such as we help people to look for employee, we help job seeker to look for job. We also provide some resume editing, vocational training, and interview preparation, and some one-on-one case management. So if any one of you or your family or friends who is looking for a job, feel free to reach out to us. And we also have some job training program, like I just mentioned before. For example, we have custodial training. We have some appliance repair program. I will introduce more later. So 85% to 90% of our program graduates will find a job within 6 months. So it's like we see a very excellent outcome. And all our services are free of charge. So as you can see in the screen, this is a picture that some of our training program. We have certified nurse aides and home health aide training program. We have hotel housekeeping training. We also have food preparation training. As for the employer, we help you to look for the employees. So what do you need to do? It's very simple. You just give us a call and then tell us what position are you hiring and what are the requirements, the salary, and the schedule, and other information. And then we will help you to create a job order, and we will inform all our experienced career advisors. So they will they will inform all our clients and see who is qualified and interested in that position, and then we will connect you to continue with the selection process. So you may choose just do a phone interview, or you can do a in-person interview. It's up to your choice. And then if you are hiring for multiple positions, we can also offer our center as an interview site. You can come to our office and do the hiring event, and then we will help you to do the outreach and recruit as many as candidates to come on the hiring event. We used to partner with different organizations and companies such as the Food Rocket that we just had. Other than the employment service, we also provide some small business outreach and technical assistance. We mainly focus in Chinatown and Sunset District. For example, we help them to apply for grants and loans during the pandemic. We also organize a lot of different workshops. We such as digital marketing, commercial leads, knowledge, and so on. We also do the vacancy tracking in the commercial corridor every month, and then we work with the city to give some recommendation and see like the vacancy trend, and then what program we can what program we can initiate in the neighborhood to help the business to grow and maintain in the neighborhood. During the pandemic, we have helped more than 100 small businesses in citywide to apply for grants and loans. We also serve as a resource hub for PPE and promotional flyer and some information for reopening safely. We also created a WeChat group. Currently, we have more than like 400 small business owners in the WeChat group. For like anyone who might not know what is WeChat, it is a very popular Chinese social media, just like WhatsApp and some online forum. It is a platform that allows people to like share information and chat. So we found that it's very effective platform to distribute the latest information that impacting every small business owner. So if you want to join that group, feel free to reach out to me and then I will add you to the group. And in the following month, we will partnering with a nonprofit called People Right to organize a commercial lease workshop about the commercial moratorium. Because as the city reopened, the ordinance started to come to an end, and we want to wrapping up and remind the small business owner what they need to do and how to negotiate with the landlord. We are also partnering with the Golden Gate Restaurant Association to have the small business owner to sign up for the San Francisco Restaurant Week in October. So if you are Golden Gate Restaurant Association member, you don't need to pay anything to join the restaurant week. But you haven't a member yet, you need to pay the annual member fee. And if you apply through us, somehow for the elderly, we can offer you a 50% off discount. So if you're a restaurant owner, I encourage you to join this festival because it is a great opportunity to attract different visitor, tourists, and a lot of customers. So it's
When is the restaurant week? When is restaurant week in October?
in October. I forgot the exact date. I can get it to you later. I think October 15 or to 25th.
Kind
It's
of,
a 10 days event.
yeah, because I was just thinking it coincides with Fleet Week this year. It's coming back too.
Yeah.
I had no idea you guys did that much stuff.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm
Because
actually
we used
surprised.
to- Yeah, because we
We
used.
gotta partner more often. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'd
Okay.
love to. Because we like focus a lot in Chinatown, and now we expand to the citywide and also Sunset District. Okay, so yeah, as I just mentioned, we are opening 2 new office locations. Our original location is in Chinatown, 601 Junction Street, and then we will having 2 more in Sunset and Richmond. So you can see the address on the screen. And you can check out our website and then give me a call or send me an email to get more information. And I also have some poster and flyer, and then I will pass it to Albert. Maybe you can help me to give anyone who is interested in our program. Thank you so much. This is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you so much.
Can you put some of that info in the chat?
Yeah, sure.
What was your staffing level? Entire organization?
Our whole agency, we have more than 100 staff, but we have different staff responsible for our program. For the small business, we have 2 staff, me and another coworker, and then
About 100 total.
More than 100, I think, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let me type the comment.
Do you work with OEWD
Yeah,
for,
we work
for
with
like,
a
like
lot.
those vacant business lots and everything?
Yeah, because
Okay.
our program is funded by OEWD.
Oh, it is? Okay,
Yeah,
cool. All right,
it has been operated for 4 years.
okay.
Yeah, but mainly Chinatown. Right now, we are expanding.
So you're coming out into our neighborhood and you're into Richmond now.
Yeah,
That's awesome. No, that is a pretty wide and deep services that they offer there. I had no idea. Rachel, can I make a recommendation? You speak to Annie Chung and change that name because it's deceiving.
self-help for that.
Self-help for the elderly is like wrong. You guys have outgrown that name.
Yeah, that's how like a lot of people aren't like think we only have senior, but like the
Yeah.
truth not. We have a lot of people, not only senior.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you told us because
How long have you had the location on Taraval?
We're not open yet, but we will open in this month.
Oh,
what's the cross street? 30, it's like 3133, but I can't think of what avenue that is.
313 Taraval Street. It's
Yeah.
actually inside a residential unit, but we turn it into your office.
All right,
Yeah, it's like a satellite office.
all right. I'm just thinking what
Thank you.
what that is,
And
but
this is some
anyway.
kind of training program.
You know, I've always wondered in Chinatown whether there's anyone helping the small businesses set up like Apple Pay, because I feel like they would get so much more business if they had something like that set up.
Yeah, but I think that's a great suggestion. Maybe we can work like with the. We usually help them to set up the Yelp account because a lot of them they don't know English and they're not that tech savvy. So we help like more enterprising business to set up a Yelp account, take a picture, write the description. But yeah, Apple Pay is very
Not just
important.
Chinatown, like a lot of like small businesses don't have it.
Yeah. So,
well, it's just cash only.
Yeah, and then people, you walk in and then you lose business if people don't have cash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I got guys that come to my store all the time. They don't have a dime between their fingers. It's just, all they have is their debit or their credit card. That's
Right.
it.
Right.
Or their phone, Apple Pay.
I don't even have a credit card anymore, it's just Apple Pay.
Oh, see, okay. Folks in the Zoomers, Zoomerland, do you guys have any other questions for Rachel, please?
Do you know of any other organization that would cover other districts, like for instance, a Tenderloin?
for employment service or small business.
For the lawyer assistants, for like commercial leases, do you know anything about that? Maybe in the Tenderloin?
Yeah, I know like LCTR, lawyers and the right? They have city, they also have the small business in Oakland. And also, I think San Francisco Bar Association, they also provide a free legal service to the commercial tenants. I can like share some contact information of their organization. I'm typing the chat.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Okay. Well, okay, we're gonna, is that it for questions for Rachel here for self-help for the elderly? Okay, well, thank you, Rachel. That was very informative.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you came in. Now we're going to pivot over to the district attorney's office. Now, first, I just want to say thank you so much for you two ladies, Rani Singh and Kasie Lee, for coming to us today. This all started with me meeting Kasie at just a completely coincidental neighborhood event with Supervisor Marr, but I had been a recent victim of a crime, and I talked about my frustrations, and that's carried into a larger thing over on Potrero Hill where my job site was. And I'm so glad that you guys are addressing the neighbors out there, because there's been a bit of a crime spree out that way. But at the same time, like over here in the Sunset, on Taraval in particular, we've had our own little rash of crimes. And, you know, there's a lot of people feeling a little bit on edge, unsettled, defenseless, you know. So I just want to say that as a preface before you guys start your presentation. But thank you.
Thank you. Who should start? Cecily, do you want to start first, or would you like us to start first?
Oh, I'll let you guys go ahead and lead. I'm here for support and whatever you need.
Okay, so I can start first. Yeah. So there were actually, maybe I could back up. As I started this position, and I can talk a little bit about my position here. I'm the interim chief of victim services at the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. And I wear two hats. I do that, and I work with our victim advocates. I've been doing that for about 3 months. Prior to that, I was serving just as an assistant district attorney in the juvenile unit, and I still have that position right now. And just as I'm doing my work, it has become more and more apparent to me how there's a lot of confusion about the legal system, the justice system, in the same way that, like, when I walk into a hospital, you know, everything's kind of like a blur to me just because I'm not part of that profession, that I don't understand it. So we're kind of here to answer questions about that. And also there were specific questions that were asked of us of certain incidents that were reported to the police, and we can also provide an update on that and kind of just overall like how to tackle this problem in front of us. It doesn't matter, like, I'm not here to talk about crime rates, because crime rates don't mean anything if we're just like, you know, it doesn't assuage our fears. So we're here to really talk about like how to troubleshoot these issues and best protect our communities. And you know, I'm sorry if this is basic, but I'm going to start with the basics just so that we can all be on the same page. But basically, how the system works with the DA's office is when a police report is made. That's kind of how you initiate it first, is by calling 911, making a police report, and you know, having the incident documented. When that happens, then that starts an investigation with the police department, and then they start, you know, collecting evidence, investigating the case. That when it's in that stage, we don't know about that case generally because it's still a pending investigation. So it sits with the police department, but there's nothing telling us, the district attorney's office, that there's this pending investigation generally. That's a general statement. Until there's an arrest made in that case. Okay, then once an arrest is made and the police are satisfied, there's usually a sergeant assigned to the case who's satisfied that there's enough evidence to present to our office. Then it makes its way into our office. In the adult court, it goes to our intake unit. In juvenile court, there's also a designated person reviewing the cases for charging. And those assistant district attorneys in the adult and juvenile court review the police reports and all the evidence that is presented, and then determine whether or not there is enough evidence to charge the case formally. And that's when we get the case, is when we get that initial police report and make that charging decision. And once we make that charging decision, what should happen is our paralegals in our office send a letter out to the named victims in the police reports. The police reports usually have the names and contact information of the harmed parties. So our paralegals would send a letter out notifying the victims that this case has been charged. You've been identified as a victim in this case that has been charged. These are the charges in the case. Just general information about the case, general rights. And then there's usually also another document attached about restitution. If there was any loss incurred as a result of the crime, there's a request from the paralegals for the crime victim to start collecting that kind of proof of loss of receipts, and so any supporting documents, and getting it to our office so that we can ask for restitution once the case is resolved. So that's kind of like a general overview of the case. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and so so hi everyone. For those of you who I have not had the chance or pleasure to meet in the past, my name is Rani Singh, and I am also a district attorney. I've been in the office 22 years. Sounds like a really long time when you say it out loud. It has been a long time. I am currently the managing attorney of the misdemeanor unit, So actually, I manage one of the largest trial units in the office with the newest lawyers in the office. So it's kind of it's like herding cats often. And so I have a lot of cases that fall within a lot of the conversations that we've had, Albert, in the past on the lower level scale, right? So for example, Walgreens thefts, right? We hear about a lot of those, right? In the Noriega and the Taraval on the Irving corridor 22nd. Batteries, a lot of the mental health cases, right? A lot of our chronic low level offenders who are obviously mentally ill, and we're trying to figure out what to do. And the cases are not serious, but the person is someone who affects the overall quality of life for the people and the residents that live there. And everybody knows the person needs services, but everyone is like, what do we do collectively, right? So those are a lot of the cases that flow through our unit. I have the added, and I will say pleasure, because it really is a pleasure to volunteer in this capacity. I am the lead community liaison for District 4. So this is a program that is the reinception of what we had years ago, the neighborhood prosecutor program, which I was also involved in Taraval District for 2 years. And in the community liaison program, which launched earlier this year, I volunteered to take District 4 for several reasons. A, it's near and dear to my heart. B, this is the neighborhood I grew up in. I was born and raised in. My parents still live in. My kid goes to school in. So for me, I think it is very important, not only as prosecutors, but as community members, for us collectively to really understand not only the area that we are working in, but the community that we are working with, because we all know that community policing, community prosecution, any type of principle of justice, whether you believe in restorative justice, whether you believe in some consequences, whether you believe in all coming to the table, everybody needs to be a part of the solution. And we're finding that more, especially in the cases where we talk, you know, Albert, where there's so many different facets to the issues that we have. The business corridors especially have had such a difficult time in the last couple of years, compounded with the pandemic, compounded with the fact that there were not other people out on the streets. So a lot of the focus on a lot of the criminal activity was businesses, right? Breaking windows, burglaries, those sorts of things, vandalism, because a lot of times people were not out. So that's where the things that we were focusing on. So I think that's a lot of what brought this information to the table. And so generally what Kasie talked about is exactly the procedure that happens. The one nuance, especially in regards to these cases in particular, and some of the ones, Albert, that you provided us the police reports with, they were flagged at the time the incident occurred, because Gordon Marr's office, Supervisor Marr, who I'm working with closely, along with the police department, was able to flag these cases at the time the police reports were generated. So that's the one great added benefit of having a community liaison who also works in the office, because we are getting more information than we normally would as a prosecutor's office, because normally we would never know about that report unless a suspect is arrested and later charged. So in those cases, and Kasie's going to talk a little bit about what actually happened, because we researched the reports, and I really appreciate Albert giving us the information that you could on the cases that there was a report generated on. The great thing about those cases were, even in the process of investigation, even in the process of a suspect only case, which is oftentimes how those reports initially come in, because if somebody is not at the scene at the time that the cops come, after a call is made, it's considered a suspect only report until a named suspect is provided based on whatever evidence, whether it be fingerprints, DNA, video surveillance, things like that. In these cases, we were able actually to connect, and this is what's great about Kasie's team, we were able to connect those victims with victim witness right away, so that we could start the process of getting victims witness claims, of finding out what needs were made. Were needed and needed to be met, whether there were safety assessments that had to be done, those sorts of things. So that was one great added benefit of having this extra linkage not only with the businesses, but with the supervisor's office and the police department, because we're getting some front end information so that at least we can start servicing a victim, even if the case is still ongoing in investigation. So that's how we had a little bit more perspective specifically on these cases, because these cases were highlighted. And then I'm gonna turn it back to Kasie, because I know Kasie did some research for us today, kind of to see where those cases were in the flow. And then we can probably maybe open it up generally to questions and also some of the concerns, Albert, that I know have come up in discussion.
Yeah, so it's kind of nuanced. I'm gonna go slow in how I explain it. But it is with respect to those cases, and we're not just, due to like privacy and protecting the privacy of the crime victims, we're not going to talk about the specifics of those cases, but the cases that were provided to them, they're still all pending investigations where no arrests have been made yet. So and that's what happens to a lot of these cases, is that a report is made, an investigation is started, and it stays in that investigation stage for a while. So the crime victims don't hear from like any parties, and they wonder like, well, I made a report, what's happening to my case now? It seems like nobody cares. But in reality, what it means is that there is work being done on, internally within SFPD, and if there's new evidence that comes along, it's still a pending investigation. It can add to their investigation. With respect to what victim services can do, that's the part where what I meant when I said it's a little nuanced. This is within the district attorney's office. The victim services division is funded generally to serve victims of violent crime only, just because there are a limited number of victim advocates, and there are a number of cases, thousands of cases that are being filed. There's just no way that the advocates can service every single crime victim that comes into the system. So we had to prioritize our cases and see like where it would make sense for advocates to actually be on cases, be assigned to cases. And those are the generally the violent cases that we see, like assaults, robberies, and so on. It's slightly different with property crime. Like, it doesn't mean that we're never assigned to property crimes, because we are in certain situations. And sometimes we just have to look more closely at the cases. But if there is any sort of force used in the property crime, so it could be, say, for example, like a vandalism, but if there was some sort of encounter also between the person who committed the offense and the victim, that might count. That might be enough for us to count it as a violent crime. It doesn't have to be a felony. It could, misdemeanors can also be counted as violent crimes, but there has to be some sort of force used. And then another category is when the victims are come from more vulnerable populations. We may also be able to step in and offer victim services there, even if it's a property crime and not technically a violent crime. So people who are newer immigrants who may have a lot of trouble navigating the system, or there's a language barrier, or people who are unhoused, for example, but suffer or are a victim of a property crime. We may be able to assist and have victim advocates kind of assigned to assist in those cases. And then one thing that's new that I don't know if you already talked about this in your past meetings, but we do have, well, let me go back there. So in addition to what I just said, the good news though is that we are hiring now. Because of this kind of gap in services, we were able to advocate for 2 additional victim advocate positions focusing on property crime. So we do have 2 new property crime advocate positions that have been approved. And so we are, a job posting is going to go out soon, and soon there will be additional advocates to help in that area. We do have a program, but it's just in District 5 to compensate merchants who suffered a property loss up to $1,000, but it's only in D5, and that was kind of the limitation for a while. My understanding is that it's been expanded through OEWD to all of the districts in San Francisco. So that's something that is very, very new. I think it's only about 2 to 3 months, if that. So now merchants who kind of suffer that loss can look to this program to be compensated.
What department, just, I'm asking, what department in OEWD is that under?
I have to look it up. If you give me a second, I can find it.
And can I just jump in for a quick second? I just looked at this today and it goes live on September 10th.
Another posting on my Facebook page.
Okay. Sorry.
It's oewd.org, vandalism relief.
Oh, okay, that sounds like a whole new department.
And they start accepting applications. They started in late August.
And this is up to $1,000 compensation?
Yeah, our District 5 program was up to $1,000. This says it's in the amount of 1,000 or 2,000.
And did you say victim relief?
Vandalism relief.
Vandalism.
Yeah, a broken window is like, depending on the size of the window and the type of glass you have, it's
Expensive.
easy over $2,000-3,000. Yeah.
I have one question regarding up on Taraval block up. This guy, they call him Jack. Jack has been there for the last 5 years, hanging out at Walgreens, sleeping on the street, morning, noon, and night, at the Starlight, or the, what is it, Starlight Bank, what's the bank?
Sterling Bank.
Sterling Bank. He's there every single day for 5 years. And he can be abrasive. People have talked about it. Reports have been made, and the poor guy still hangs out there. Period.
Do you know if he's committed any offenses?
Other
Is
than
there a
loitering?
suspicion?
No, I mean, public defecation, which is disgusting, but I don't see what else is he gonna do. But the guy, I know his history a bit. He used to work at a glass shop on Taraval Street at the very top near your place. He lost his job just through his own lethargy. He just didn't have the gumption to go make something of himself, and he just slid into homelessness. But he's been there at that bottom state ever since. But it is so funny about this guy. I guess he's kind of like, he's like the little poster child of the problems we have in other districts and other parts of the neighborhood. Is that you will send social services to ask this guy, you can't sleep here, you got to move along. Would you like services today? We can provide you a hot meal, a shower, some dog training, get you cleaned up. No, I don't want anything. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe off you go, and that's it. But the thing is, what I kind of wonder as a merchant and as a person is, why are we asking this guy who's not made very good decisions in his life make another decision in his life, when certainly someone like that needs help? He might not ever admit it, but you can clearly see he's not doing well. He's failing, and it's not fair to us as merchants or as people in the neighborhood. I don't want to walk around his feces. I don't want to walk around and have my kid see him lay on the street like that, and just.
Or what I saw yesterday or the day before, when the dry cleaner was open, he was laying there and some people needed clothes and walked over the poor guy. It's absurd.
So he was like blocking the doorway.
Yeah.
The-
It's
Oh.
absurd.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's like one of the things in the neighborhood, but like the crimes that we had, like I told you about Boba Foam.
Yeah.
Foam, Foam Boba Tea Shop. They got 3 windows shot out from them, one after another. And finally now they have a roll-up door to shield the glass. And then also, what was it? The other one was a Footprint Shoes,
Yes,
which had a break-in. The guy used a blowtorch in the bottom of the
I saw
glass.
the video of that
Yeah,
one.
you saw that. And then recently they had a smash and grab where someone just came in, pushed everybody out of the way and just grabbed a bunch of stuff
At the same.
and then ran off. But that guy wasn't so lucky. So when I talked to Michael, the owner, he says he had just had a new hire. He turned out to be a Lincoln High School football linebacker. Tackled the guy. Threatened to
Was there an
pull-
arrest then? He was
Um,
arrested on the spot?
it was all, he got a report, but I don't, yeah, I think I sent all those reports to you guys. So that's what happened. I tried to reach out to Dragon Instant Printing, which is a company that's no longer there.
Yeah.
And the sad story there was that they were a victim of arson about a half a year ago. And he just never recovered. And he just threw in the towel.
I know that couple very well because I used to frequent that business and I was very
And
sad.
in May,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, they were, I mean, it's a printing company, but they also had like a lot of snacks for the kids
For
after
Hoover,
school and they
yeah.
were like a family, like a community neighborhood business.
yes.
And in that case, I always wondered with some of these cases that we see here too, right? Like whether it was racially motivated too, because that was right at the start of the pandemic. And also kind of like right along the street. It wasn't just their business that was affected. There were other businesses along there that were also impacted. And it's worth looking to see whether or not they were Chinese-owned businesses there.
Yes.
I don't know if you heard about the case on Ocean Avenue. There were a number of merchants that were also affected there, and for a while, it was like over a period of a few months, there were 20 different businesses that were vandalized, and there were also videos of the person doing it, like with slingshots, like kind of breaking the windows and so forth. This is sort of publicized, and it initially there was an arrest in that case, and our office ultimately did not proceed with the case, which kind of caused some anger. And then there was a second arrest of a different individual, and then our office was able to proceed because as it turned out, the first individual that was apprehended, we did not believe it was the right person. The second person it was a much better match, and also there was enough evidence for us to actually move forward with hate crime charges in that case. So now that's a pending case with 27 felony counts and I think 30-something hate crime enhancements. And kind of that case just illustrates like how the kind of the burden that we need to meet in order to charge a case. We definitely want to make sure there's enough evidence so we're actually charging the right person. And then secondly, like when there are these incidents, it's hard to ignore, like, sometimes if it's a Chinese-owned business, like, was this targeted, like in this climate, right? And in that case, we were able to, there was actually explicit evidence for us to kind of move forward with those hate crime enhancements. And that it just illustrates like the amount of proof that we need to have in order to get to a case like that.
So let's just go to those Ocean Street merchants,
Yep.
That case.
Right.
Did you report that back to the victims that someone, like some progress was made in that case?
Yeah, so the victims have all been contacted.
They actually were contacted before too.
Yeah,
In that, not all of them there, I think there were 20. So we tried
quite
to
a bit.
reach out to, this is before the arrest, or beforehand, we tried to reach out to everybody. But now definitely they have been contacted now that we have the second case. But for kind of purposes here, I think, if we want to, like when merchants are kind of like living in fear and like a crime happens and they wonder like what else can we do? I think there are things that can be done in order to assist us in making a case, like definitely making that police report, but not just making the police report, being very thorough in the statement, because there are things that may be useful to the police that may not be that apparent to lay people. So like if there is a merchant who is Chinese speaking, I think it's important to say, hey, you know what? A lot of Chinese speakers, if they speak a little bit, they try to accommodate and they try to answer all the questions as best as they can. But what happens if they're not fluent is they're actually missing stuff that can actually be helpful to the police. So I think it's important if we have non-native, like non-fluent English speakers to ask for a Chinese speaker, a police officer who actually speaks the language, so that the victim can give a false statement. And having things like cameras, stuff like that, that's always very helpful.
I think that one of the things that makes me, now that I'm a newly minted victim, I just felt like when I got victimized, I just, my initial thought was really, oh, well, that had to happen because, it had happened to so many other contractors. Their job sites get broken into, all the tools get stolen. And I just pretty much written it off. I just figured I'm never seeing those tools again. I'm not going to get any recourse to anyone that's, that broke into my place. And it was a really pro job. These guys were good. So, my thing is that, you guys need to, you're telling me all this stuff. And I think that the problem out there for all of us is that we don't hear it. And I mentioned it to you before, Kasie. I'm just bringing it before this meeting, but we don't hear it.
And we don't see any movement. We hear a lot of talk, a lot of bureaucratic pushing the button, pushing the responsibility to this and that because of this and that, the other thing. Everything, the status quo remains the same.
So I think that, we're seeing more of newsreels of, people breaking into Walgreens and lifting out garbage bags full of goods and walking out the door. But we don't hear the follow through that, oh, we've busted a ring. We've caught these buses. And I saw that one about that huge warehouse that had all the CVS and Walgreens
And
stuff.
how it gets repurposed and resold. And
Right. Now
those
that
are
was
more like the organized retail, but
right.
and
That
I
was
think-
the mafia crime, right?
Well, and Albert, that's why I want to make sure that, I think it's hard, I hate that word bureaucrat, but I get why people use it because my dad used to make an old joke because my mom worked for the federal government for 30 years. He also used to say good enough for government work, right? Which is the quintessential bureaucrat, right? I've been doing this for 22 years because I'm not a bureaucrat. Like I wouldn't be here volunteering my time at 8 o'clock at night, right off the clock with you guys if this wasn't important. So I think we need to have these conversations, these uncomfortable conversations more. We need to hear the complaints. People shouldn't be shying away from them. And, I was on the phone with a victim today and she, like what you're saying, Albert, she didn't know what was going on with the case. And it was a case that got reduced from a felony to a misdemeanor. So it landed in our lap. Somebody did drop the ball, a bureaucrat in our office dropped the ball and did not call this victim. And I got on the phone with my lawyer and we called this victim. And I said, it's unacceptable. And that's not okay. And what do you need from us? And what are we going to do? And that victim within 20 minutes had my personal cell, had my email. So you're going to get that, right? In any kind of job, you're going to get bureaucratic cops. We're going to stand at that front and maybe they're going to take the report and maybe they're not. And then you're going to have that great cop who's going to go the extra mile, take the print. So we need to tap into these resources like you did, Albert, by meeting Katie, by meeting Kasie and having her here, by having our relationship in the country, because that's the only way we can make the kind of bureaucracy get out of the way and the action plan get in the way. So like, that's why you gave us clear, concrete information about those cases. And we have the answer. We don't have them yet, which means then the question, and it's not about passing them up. We do need to follow up with the police and say, what do you need? Is there stuff that can be done in the investigation? I know in one of those cases, I talked to Captain Rainsford, and unfortunately, one of the owners started cleaning up before CSI got out. And that's a fact that I know, right? That wouldn't necessarily be out there. We wouldn't be. So some of the evidence got destroyed. So it would have been a little bit better if we could have gotten prints. Like glass was already taken away. I think there might have even been blood on some glass. Like this is the kind of stuff. So when the crime scene is altered in any way, that also affects our ability to charge. Because guess what happens? This is one thing also that's not well known, right? If you don't know, just like what Kasie said about talking medical jargon, you need probable cause to arrest, but we have to prove our case beyond a reasonable doubt. That is the highest standard in the law, right? People, you can have one little crack and the jury comes back not guilty, right? Just like in
Get
a
all
civil,
close,
in a
get all
civil
close.
case,
Yeah.
you don't have to have unanimous verdict. But in a criminal case, you sure do. So you can have 11 people and one person who, you know, chokes and doesn't give us what we need. So we have to be as sure can be when we charge a case. Now, if the resolution is not what people want, that's where the victim service and interacting with the victims is the most important, because I always tell victims, I may not always agree, but I'm always going to respect their decision. So I think these are the things that are really important for us to keep on having conversations about and act upon, not just talk about. So hopefully this is a good starting point, because now you have 2 point people, Albert, you know, me specifically in the district, and Kasie for, you know, for being kind of overall for all victim services, that you can come to and say, Ronnie, what's going on with this case?
Okay. Cicely, I see you waving your hand there.
I was just going to offer up myself as well. I am overseeing the community liaison unit now, and I'm trying to connect with as many folks as possible. And I'm also here for you. I will impose upon Rani and or Kasie to share my email, although I think you may already have it. And we're here, and this is exactly what both Kasie and Rani are saying. I was just in a meeting today with some merchants downtown, and we were talking about many of these very same issues. And I agree wholeheartedly with what both Rani and Kasie have said. And you know, together, I think we can work towards some solutions. But there's no easy answer, unfortunately. There's no sort of one shot that will fix everything. But coming together and listening and you know, talking, this is how we're going to start to solve some of these very difficult issues.
Thank you, Cicely. Paula, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I think it's great you've come out to talk to us. Thank you so much. I usually hear about this stuff more on nextdoor.com. I'm not a merchant, so I'm not aware of those things. And of course, maybe because of the type of community is the people who respond, it's mostly negative. And I support what the district attorney is doing and the progressive district attorneys who don't want to put people away for years and years and years for petty crimes. But I'm also very concerned is, I don't know all your names, but as one of you said, the woman in the blue mask, it also really affects the quality of life of the residents when their cars are broken in, when their houses are broken in, and then they feel like nothing is being done. So I'm wondering how you can communicate more with the community. Do you have a presence on nextdoor.com? I remember SFMTA said they weren't allowed to post or something. I don't know. Is there a way that you can not respond to the individual complaints of people who are saying the district attorney isn't doing anything, blah, 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 but to post on the things, the processes you're doing, the things you're doing, how you're trying to deal with that issue? Is that allowed for you to do and something you're considering doing? Or maybe you're doing it and I just don't get those posts.
So normally, Paul, we can't really be on Nextdoor unless, you know, you live in that small circumference area. I'm on my Nextdoor in my area, but I don't live in D4. My parents do. So, but one thing that I am actively involved in, and we're going to be even more actively involved in now that people are getting back to kind of real live meetings and a little bit less hybrid. So I've been attending CPAB the entire time. So I'm part of the CPAB, the Community Police Advisory Board.
What's CPAC? What is CPAC?
The CPAB, the District 4. So the Taraval CPAB, I attend those meetings with Captain Rainsford and all the representatives on the CPAB. I also attend every month the community meeting. So those are just, you know, mostly community members. Some of them are merchants, but a lot of them are neighbors. And as we kind of build out this community liaison program in its new version, we will start going back into all the smaller neighborhood meetings. When I was a neighborhood prosecutor, I was going to 10 or 15 meetings a month. And I was going to the Parkside meeting, the Golden Gate Heights meeting, the down the street around the corner meeting. So we are willing to do that at a small scale and a large scale. Like Albert, we didn't know how many people were gonna be in Zoom in person. And Kasie and I jumped at the chance to come in person because we like to be able to interact with people. And like I said, there is no bad question. There is no tough question we're gonna shy away from. We may not have the answer right away. We may have to get back to you, but there should be total transparency. We don't mind. Kasie and I have been in a lot of tough meetings in the last few months. That's not why we do this job. We do this job because we care about you. Kasie went to school in the neighborhood. I grew up in the neighborhood. Like, we are very vested, not only in this neighborhood, but in the work that we do. And so I really appreciate that, Paula, because I think a lot of people don't know what we're doing. But when I hear people say we don't prosecute cases, I tell them, come to my morning calendar with my, 12 DAs and my 1,700 cases. I mean, we have 1,700 open misdemeanors right now. My lawyers have tried 8 cases in the last 3 months, and they've been going back-to-back trials as soon as COVID lifted restrictions. So we're trying to get back to the business of doing our job with the backlog, but the reality is too, we're still dealing with that too. So everything seems slightly overwhelming, but we are here to answer any questions and be supportive and try to come up with joint solutions that keep people safe and are having people in the community in both the business and the residential sector heard.
All right.
Okay, can I make a few community outreach suggestions?
Sure. Oh, I don't know.
Eileen mentioned that we're having the community fair in October.
Yes.
If you guys can set up a booth and maybe have some literature to give out to people about how much you are dealing with car break-ins and burglaries or robberies in the homes and stuff like that. We also have a weekly flea market, and I know some groups have booths there. You shouldn't be doing this on your own time, though. It should be something that the district attorney's office pays someone to go out for. I haven't actually read Supervisor Moore's monthly bulletin the last month or two. Do you have a section in that every month?
No, we don't. So I can talk to him about doing that. And also, we used to have a section in the Taraval newsletter, so we can try to revisit.
Yes.
Well, I read them all, but I don't get to say anything.
Sunset Beacon's Point is interested in having you guys put a little column of your, successes, your updates on current crimes that are going through your system right now.
And then
Barry Hermanson has a question.
Can I have one other thing I just wanted to add? Has Gordon Moore had a town hall on this yet?
Yes. We just had the Chinese Cultural District Town Hall. I know, Albert, you were there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kasie and I were there, but I don't think some of the crime safety issues came up in the circle that Kasie and I were working on, but it wasn't a focused town hall safety meeting. No, I don't.
Crime and what the city's doing about it. I think that would be something good, because then he'll announce it and they'll get a lot of publicity on nextdoor.com. A lot of people will probably say you won't do anything, but a lot of people say, hey, let's see what they're doing. So that's something you might want to talk to him about as well. And thank you.
Thank you,
Can I
Paula.
just clarify one thing before we move forward? And I
Sure.
think it's important for people to know, when your house is broken into, and especially if you're at home, if it's a hot pile, that is a violent crime. It's very, very intrusive. It's a huge violation when somebody comes into your home. And it's definitely considered a violent crime.
Thank you.
Well, that's something that has to be communicated to people. I'm a retired lawyer, but I don't remember my criminal law. So.
All right. Barry, please.
Hey, so, Albert, I didn't hear all the details. It's kind of shocking that your job site got robbed and pretty well cleaned out, as you indicated to me. And that's, I'm sure that's happening quite regularly all over the city. Was there video of the intruders? Because it's, unless there's real evidence, I don't know how the DA's office can begin to respond to what your complaint is. But secondly, Walgreens thefts and all this stuff, the small thefts that are going on that are dramatically reported in our communities. I've seen people selling miscellaneous items on sidewalks. And it speaks to me that, this is number one, we have a law in California that says anything stolen be below a certain level, which, what is that level? Like $800-900 now? It's basically it's not to be charged. And we voters passed that just a few years ago. But yet we're all extremely upset by what's going on. And I totally appreciate and supported the idea that, yeah, we don't want to be throwing people into jail for really minor property crimes. But now the discussion has shifted to say that maybe these are major property crimes that are going on in our stores, the petty theft that goes uncharged. And that's the discussion I don't think we're having. And do we want to throw people in jail or do we not? And at what level? And the DA's office is being blamed for us as a society not dealing with that question.
And just to clarify one thing, so we do charge those cases, but they are charged as misdemeanors, which means most of them are cited out. So it's considered an arrest, right? But it's not an in custody arrest. You're given a citation to appear on a future date to answer to the misdemeanor charge, which is then generated. But there's very little jail time associated. So then you see a lot of repeat offenders picking up misdemeanor after misdemeanor after misdemeanor. And that's where you see that chronic offender kind of misdemeanor terminology, because you have the same actor. He went to Walgreens on Monday and then he, came back on Wednesday. What happened? We thought he got arrested, but it's a citation because of what Barry brought up. Prop 47 reduced a category of cases from felonies to misdemeanors if it was under a certain amount. So we also have to separate the two. Those chronic petty theft crimes are very different than some of these major crimes, especially like the break-in, Albert, where thousands of dollars was taken.
That leads to a question, which is, I think I remember Mayor Lee during his time, there was discussion of there was car break-ins and problems like this back then. And there was the consideration of cumulative crimes to a particular individual. So I don't know if that adds to, because I mean, look, if it's someone breaking into a car and like a teenager doing something stupid, fine, I get it. But if it's like someone that's doing this and they've got this down, they're professionals. They know how to, like break in, grab the purse, and get in the car and go, and then they go to the next one.
Right. So it's been a while since I've done this. I think Rani can best answer this question. There's still that. Before Prop 47, it was petty theft with a prior to be elevated to felony. Now it's petty theft with three priors. You need 3 priors for it to be elevated to felony. But I'll also say this, I've been with the DA's office not that long, but I've been practicing this type of law for about 18 years now. So I'm still very familiar with the laws in the system. And I was a private attorney for a while. And I'd have to say, people are saying, oh, it's just a misdemeanor, it's just a misdemeanor. But every single person who walked through my door when they were charged with a misdemeanor were terrified. A misdemeanor is not just a slap on the wrist. There are actual consequences. When a person suffers a misdemeanor conviction, it can affect their ability to find a job. If they are not U.S. citizens, there could be adverse immigration consequences. Misdemeanors can carry jail time, and it can result in jail time too, like usually 6 months, up to 364 days. So even if something is just a misdemeanor, there are real life consequences.
May I ask? This is one for your boss. Why doesn't he speak?
I mean, he does. I think he doesn't, the amount of places he has to go and the amount of, so he does go out, he does have speaking engagements, he is called into the community. If you guys wanted him to come and we had enough, notice and we could get that arranged. So I don't think it's issue that, but if you think about everything and every place he would need to go to educate people, I think it would be, but I agree, Albert, it is important. And actually the DA he does not shy away from speaking. I think it's just a matter of
It's
us.
not so much
Yeah.
he has to go to every
Yeah.
community and come into our living rooms
Yeah.
and speak. But the fact that there's not some assurance to say, we're gonna stop this crime. This is unacceptable in San Francisco. This cannot happen. I want to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, what you do on the back end, like let's say that person, gets taken in and has social services, or, he doesn't have to do jail time, but at least those people are taken in and then taken off and steered away from the crime and the path they are on. Because right now it feels like, in a sense, that the reason why I really want to engage with you, ladies, here, is that there's a sense of lawlessness out there.
Yeah.
And I've had more than one merchant say to me, because my hardware store is kind of like a barber shop. People can just shoot the crap out there. And there's guys that come up and says, what's the difference between them being so lawless and I have to obey the rules? And I feel like I'm not getting anything from my taxes. I'm not getting anything for being a good person. Why don't I just buy a gun and take care of the law myself? I don't want to go there. I hate guns, but I totally get his or her point of view. And that's what we're seeing right now. And I just feel like, it almost, his impression, or at least his branding to me, is that you get off scot-free. You're not punished. And whatever you may think, because you're inside the office, I know you see it differently, but this is how we see it out here.
No, I absolutely, and I can tell you, I've been there 22 years, so it's not, Albert, I do understand. I think it's a convergence of a few issues. Number one, there is no doubt in my mind that the pandemic has shifted a lot of stuff, and it is happening in a lot of other major urban cities, right? A lot of this lawlessness sense. We can talk about, it's Democratic run, or it's this run, or it's that, but you hear it on the news, regardless of whether we're watching Fox or CNN. It's clear that a lot of urban areas are having a lot of issues. We never had sideshows, and we had a sideshow in the Sunset. I mean, that doesn't happen, what happened a month ago. We don't have those over here, right? So it's happening more, it's spreading out. There's also a lot of homelessness, unfortunately. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people are in stable houses, a lot more desperation. But I have to say, when you have criminal justice reform in any form, because I've been in the office for 22 years, so I've seen this in different stages. And those of you who are been here forever, when Terrence Hallinan came, we had the same discussion, and I was hired in that administration. And people were like, oh my God, there's going to be pot everywhere and nobody's going to be held accountable, right? And so when you have any kind of criminal justice reform, there's always going to be that issue. And we are going to make mistakes. There are going to be mistakes. That's just the way, the nature. But I think the biggest and most important thing is what you're talking about. There has to be open communication, and people need to feel like we're accessible and that we can hear you. Because if we're not accessible, then that is the only narrative that is seen, because that's what you visually see and you don't know what's going on. So I see both sides, but I can tell you with criminal justice reform, it is a tricky balance. Do you give them services? Are you punitive? Do they get jail? Do they have mental health? And do you give them services? There's always that push-pull. So there is going to be trial and error in trying to do things better. Like what Barry said, do we want to go back to the place where we lock everyone up, or do we want to try to give people services but hold them accountable? Where's the balance? And that's the thing, we're trying to find the balance. So there are going to be times where there are going to be things that look the way that you're saying is portrayed outside. But I think having these conversations are the most important thing, because the bottom line is the evidence is the evidence. If a case gets charged, then we need to follow it through. If it follows to a good result, we should be communicating that. If a mistake was made, we need to own it, right? It's all those things combined.
I just feel like, I believe in, like the distribution of punishment with some compassion. But, like there has to be law and order in society, because we here that try to be on the law-abiding side, feel like we're just being victimized and there's nothing we can do. But at the same time, like if there's some messaging from the DA's office, like I said, like Sunset Beacon gladly would like to put an article in for you guys to report your successes. I think that, Mr. Bodine needs to talk more of, what his point of view is, instead of just letting it all become, silent air, because then it makes us fill that void with other noise that makes him look bad, and hence why he's being, he's going through this recall thing, number 2. I just feel like, that also sends a message to the criminals that, hey, this town isn't to be messed with. You're gonna get caught. You're gonna have to fess up to some punishment, whether it is, restitution, or having to do social services, clean the streets or something like that, or actual jail time. But I think that it's necessary. I mean, help us first, the people that are doing the right thing. But then again, yeah, I don't want to see that person be recidivism and just keep going and doing the crime and just having a criminal history as long as his arm. I wanted to see that person work out of that horrible circle of life too. But it is that balance. But I think that right now, I think there's some strong messaging is necessary from your department.
And the balance, the scales of justice, justicia is blind. And as I look out, at San Francisco, I was born here. And I also hang out in Calcutta, India. This is now becoming Calcutta. When I go down to Costco, underneath the freeway.
The Harrison.
Yeah. They're gone, then they're back. They're gone, then they're back. And this has been going on, before Bodine,
Yeah, we've talked, and that's. what
it's the same thing.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to talk, that's the hard thing, right? It's been a while. We've been having these conversations for a while. I think that it is hard. And as we see it, right now in the state that it's in, because of all these other convergence of issues, there has been a homeless problem and it's increasing. There has been a theft problem. And right now, because of circumstances, COVID, everything, it's increasing. But this is also a fact. People do not realize how many crimes occur, and crimes occur. If you look at the ratio of crimes that occur to crimes that are reported, to crimes that are investigated, to crimes that a suspect is arrested, to crimes that are charged, the funnel becomes this small, literally. So if you look at the actual percentage of closed cases, and I don't want to talk about like broad, little detailed stats, but if you're just generally looking at the broad category of cases that happen versus cases that make it through all those steps to our front door, the funnel's already so small. And then once it makes it to our front door, is there sufficient evidence? And then we can go into the next thing, whereas the nitpicking of how we are charging, what we are charging, how we're resolving, right? And that's where Kasie and I may have to answer tough questions. But a lot of times we don't even get there because the narrative is we're not doing it. And that's the one thing where, Albert, that is not correct, right? Because a lot of things we are doing that people don't see, but what you're saying is a lot of people don't do.
If you wonder, I don't know if the Sunset Beacon has staff, but if they came and sat in on one of our courtrooms just to see how many cases are waiting to go out to trial. For example, I was just, in court last week. And there are cases where the defense and prosecution are announcing ready, and every time they announce ready and the court has to put it past the last day, she has to make a record, and her record is there are currently 432 no time waiver trials that are waiting for a courtroom. 432 trials that are waiting, of which 200 and something have defendants who are still in custody. And then that's just felony trials. And then there are a whole hundreds of misdemeanor trials also waiting to go out. So if people think that cases aren't being charged and that there are no consequences, I think it'd be so helpful to have a reporter actually sit in to see the number of cases that are being tried.
I will speak to the editor. But you know, it's still, like, when I hear that, it just sounds so daunting. But, you know, I
It
think
is,
that-
but you know what? We take it a chip at a time. You know, we had 197 cases backlogged. I was telling Kasie in April this year, we cleared our entire misdemeanor backlog.
Huh.
We resolved the cases, we pled them, and we tried them. So I mean, when it's business, and I'm not the only manager like that. We are working tirelessly to get through the backlog and through this pandemic and still provide the services, that we need to provide and that victims and the public deserve.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I think all the Pops folks out there and Zoomers, man, you heard it here. We got any problems, we'll follow up.
Yes,
We're here.
We'll
absolutely.
follow up with the DA's office, we'll follow up. with the police
In
department.
fact, I'm gonna be walking over right now, as soon as we're done with our agenda item, to Lieutenant Lozada, who needs me for something. He found out I was here somehow.
All
I don't
right.
know, there was a wrong.
Well, are there any other questions for the district attorneys today? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Good job.
Thanks for having us.
That was
Yeah.
incredible.
This was fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Albert, you have the direct dial to us, so you can find us.
Well, I do, and I'll use it judiciously.
And Grace.
I won't bug you all the
and Grace
time.
can bother me anytime when I'm in the chair next door.
It's just like,
because that
Rachel,
goes
I'm
along.
definitely gonna call you now that I know all the
I
services you
know.
provide. That's amazing.
If anything comes up, I'll be right next door talking to Lieutenant Lozada.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great suggestions.
Pleasure to meet everyone.
We ran a little long, guys, with the with that segment, but here, I'm just gonna turn to me. Just a little bit of pop business here. They're gonna start marketing. They're gonna start doing a marketing campaign probably towards the end of this month with regards to Taraval Street for the segment B from Sunset Boulevard all the way to West Portal. And one of the things about the marketing is that we need to come up with, like, let's say a nice name, just like Beachside Taraval, that we can use for the upper part of Taraval. So I would like you guys to think about it, and please feel free to send me an email and if you've got some suggestions. Because they're definitely gonna start asking questions like that. So
Albert, what's there? We have the beach out here. What do they have between Sunset and West Portal?
well, that's what Paula. We're gonna try to save it so that we can spread the joy around to everybody. I do want you guys to start thinking about that if you can. And also the other thing too is there's Christmas tree lighting. I think we can still do that the end of this year, or at the beginning of December. So I'm just wondering if we hire a Christmas tree company to light it up, it's gonna be like about $6,000-7,000. And we did it for nothing last time. So maybe it's up to you guys. I'm happy to help, put the lights up on the tree with a little crew. Or do you guys want to hire a professional company, make it look really dazzling?
I'll help.
What's been done in the past, Albert? Have we hired someone or done it ourselves?
Well, what happened was we did it before. We have a company that does it. I have their contact. But last year, because of COVID, it was just Robert, Les, myself, Jessica, and Wesley. We strung that tree up pretty nicely, but we couldn't do the really fancy stuff that the professional company could do. But being that we're still kind of in COVID, for me, it sounds like it's okay if we want to do it ourselves and save a few bucks. Remember, we've got reduced funding this year.
Albert,
Go ahead, Paul.
no, you can go, Barry.
So, maybe we can, it doesn't have to be all, excuse me. We could start, basically, it's community tradition of come together and help to decorate and bring something to decorate on the tree.
That's a nice idea.
No, And so we're asking people in the community to contribute to that tree.
Okay,
And it may mean that we need to do a little more, I don't know, cleanup on a regular basis, because it won't be the same quality of ornaments necessarily. Some of them won't withstand the weather. But even a child's little handwritten message that's hung on the tree, damn.
I think that's a really nice idea, Barry.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we try to do it and make it a community event.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And Albert, what I was going to say is I don't think the community is going to think, I don't think the community cares if it's done all fancy. If it's just done nice and it's pretty, and especially if they help put it together, I don't think
Yeah.
it has to be
Right.
really, really fancy. But then I'm Jewish, so what do I know about Christmas trees?
Well, is it going to be a liability for us as an organization, though? Having community members climb up in a ladder to
Oh, no. We did not climb up on the ladder. So what we did last time was we took long extension poles and we just strung it around the top of the tree as high as we could go.
Cool.
So yeah, no ladders. No, we're not doing that.
Albert, I'm a little confused. In the past, did you hire someone or did you do the same thing?
We started hiring somebody for 2 years and then we had to stop because of COVID.
Oh, but all the years before that?
We did it ourselves, but the tree, remember, was a small tree. Now it's a gargantuan tree. That's when we started hiring somebody because
Right.
you couldn't get that high up.
So there's no way to put a star on top?
No. No, Paula, unless I drink Red Bull and grow wings.
Well, maybe you can get a company to donate getting the star on the top. If this community event, they get publicity.
I'm worried about insurance, Paula.
I'm going to call Twinkle after this thing.
Someone better write their letter to Santa early.
Right.
Okay, well, let's consider trying to make it a community event then. Let's do that.
Good. I'd work with you on that, Albert. That'd be
Okay,
great.
all right then. Okay, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting. You guys have a good night. Thank you.
Albert, let me say
Bye,
one other
thank
thing.
you.
Thank you.
Albert, let me say one other thing. Doesn't the city light a Christmas tree in a menorah downtown?
What about, I don't know. I think they do. Yes, they have their own, the city has its own tree.
Then why, maybe you can get them to do this one as well and let them pay for it.
No, I don't think that works that way, Paula.
Okay,
We have to hire our own.
okay.
Okay, thank you, folks.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.